Welcome to the Powerful Vulnerability Podcast, where we believe in the transformative power of storytelling from the heart. I'm Dr. Ashley.
And I'm Catherine Russler.
We are so glad you're here. Many stories here are extraordinary.
And some carry quiet wisdom.
All teach us. Welcome back to Powerful Vulnerability. Today, we are joined by the incredible and magical Dr. Tiffany Tajiri, a board-certified clinical psychologist, Air Force veteran, musician, and performing artist. She spent years working at the highest levels of government mental health, serving as a supervisory psychologist and clinic chief before stepping away to fully answer a deeper calling. Today, she creates at the intersection of psychology, movement, music, and spiritual embodiment. She is the creator of Freedom Rhythm, a neuroscience-informed movement experience that transforms emotion into energy through dance, rhythm, and creative expression. Her work is rooted in the belief that healing and self-actualization don't come from suppression or perfection, but from reconnection to the body, to creativity, and to inner truth. She is also the author of Born to Create and Peace After Combat, and a singer-songwriter with music published on major streaming platforms. Across everything she does, writing, movement, music, and teaching, her mission is to help people break free from conditioning, reclaim their creative power, and remember who they were before they were taught to shrink. Welcome, Tiffany. We are so glad to have you with us today.
I am so thrilled and honored to be with you two beautiful women. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure.
Mm.
One of the things I love most about Tiffany is how fully she embodies her space and lets her quirks shine. She is also known as the colorful psychologist, a quirky animated persona that teaches psychology and neuroscience. It's like her own little version of Miss Frizzle from the Magic School Bus. Tiffany, you wrote a book called Born to Create. Can you give us the Cliff Notes version of what that book's about?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe firmly that we were made in the image of the creator, right? And what does the creator do? Create. And I believe that when we are not actively creating the gift that we have within, we become stuck. We become stagnant. It results in depression and anxiety. And guess what that does to our body? It depletes our body, right? It
Mhm.
downregulates our genetic output for disease and eventually death because we're not in that state of flow because that's what the creator is. Pablo Picasso once said that the purpose in life is to find your gift, and the
Mm.
meaning of life is to give it away, right? And we
Mm.
have to find what that gift is. Too often in society, we're conditioned about what the gift has to be. We have to work in a rat race, like in a hamster wheel, working from 9 to 5. That do we ever get the opportunity to self actualize? As children, I think we are innate. We know what our gift is as a child. That inner child is so wise. The spirit is so fresh in the body and it's carefree. But then we become conditioned over time to be still. Movement is healing. And then we have to be quiet. And then we have to raise our hands. And it just becomes a sense of conditioning where we learn to minimize our authentic voice. And in doing so, that has traumatic effects on the body long term. Think of people who go into the rat race every single day to make that money, and it's constantly a system of debt, right? What does it do to them mentally, physically, and spiritually? It becomes a trap. And so, my goal is to help people get out of that system, not just the system itself, but to get out of that state of mind, because really it comes from a place of spirit. And then that spirit becomes mind, right? And to get them to break free, to embrace that inner child, and to live their divine design, right? For their divine destiny.
I love it so much.
How did you start noticing this? And can you talk about your journey noticing this and embracing your full self and starting to expand into the world?
Absolutely. So, growing up, I have been blessed to have a mom who, single parent, she did it all on her own with the support of my grandparents, but she truly helped to guide me. And she really just allowed me to be my most authentic self as a child. She didn't try to squelch me or make me smaller or dim my light. The world tended to do that, not my mother. So I had a safe space at home, and she'd encourage all the things that I wanted to do. And so as I grew up, I got really good at listening inside of me, my spirit, God working through me, where my next step should be. So I went into psychology because that felt right. But I didn't mind changing my mind because the first thing I wanted to do was go into the medical field and become an MD. And then I realized, wait, no, this is not what I want to do. This is not my passion. This is not my curiosity, right? I believe in life to find your divine design or your divine destiny, you have to follow that rabbit hole that you're curious about and go deeper and quench that satiation. And then in that process, you get ideas that are born from it that you create. And so psychology was that rabbit hole for me. And I went as far as I could. The things I felt fascinated about, I wanted to join the military. I wanted to be a psychologist for special operators and help people overcome trauma. And then, right, life evolves. And then I went for government service. And then I realized, am I happy? Have I lost my creativity? When you go higher up in the echelons of rank, then you do that admin work, you're the boss lady. And it just started depleting me of my colors, of who I was. I went from bright and vibrant, right, to dull, like a black and white TV screen. And I didn't like what I was seeing. And so I really had to step away from it. I had to make the right financial decisions to be able to do that. And they all aligned in the right place with, of course, the support of my loving husband. I couldn't do it without him. And it became these 3 years of going inward and soul searching. And it really began with the exploration of my inner child. All the things I loved the most was ballet and music and singing and playing the viola, acting, dancing, you name it. And so then I just went into a place to find my gift. What is exactly my gift? I knew I was a healer, but what is it unique to me that I can give to the world that no one else can, and what the world needs at this time? There's a Japanese kind of theory called ikigai, and it really goes along with finding what you love and giving that gift, along with what Pablo Picasso said. Purpose in life is to find your gift. The meaning of life is to give it away. But in the process, it wasn't easy because people thought, who do you think you are? What are you doing? You're singing, you're writing books, you're out public speaking, you're dressing like you're 5 years old, because there was a time where I really wanted to embrace that inner child and just have fun and teach people like the colorful psychologist in a very animated way. And I didn't let them dim my light. I feel like I had to do my own form of exposure therapy to not care about what people thought, because I think the opinions of others can be your prison. And so I had to make sure that I really didn't care what people thought in order to break free.
What would you say to some of our listeners who may be feeling trapped by the judgment of people around them and how they can break free themselves?
It's all incremental. For me, right, it depends on who you are and what your character is in life, what your spirit leads you to. And I'm always saying, listen to that inner voice within, right? But I think for some people, it might be step by step, wearing a new color lipstick, right? That's not the same neutral. Maybe you want to wear the bright red lipstick or the pink lipstick or the colorful shirt. Style your hair in a different way, buy a wig, do something different with fashion, have fun. Others like me, I go extreme. I'm going to dive all in. And if I trigger you, oh, or I trigger you. Not a reflection of me, it's a reflection of how you're seeing me through the lens you're seeing me. And so for me, that's what I had to do in order to rip that band-aid off, so to speak. But do little things, putting yourself first, creating, doing your hobbies, the things that you gravitated towards as a kid, do that, because your inner child is the best compass. In fact, it is the fountain of youth. When we embrace the characteristics of being playful, fun, joyous, creative, imaginative, chromosomes grow longer. More specifically, the ends of our chromosomes, known as our telomeres. And when our
Really?
chromosomes grow longer, because we're neurohacking the chronic stress program, because we're playful and youthful and young, it has a direct relationship to our lifespan, our longevity.
So we can actually reverse damage we've done to our telomeres?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's a
That's great
study
news.
counterclockwise. I think it was done and it's been recreated many times, but back in the 60s or 70s, if I'm not mistaken. And they had a group of older adult population, I would say 75 and beyond, and they brought them into a set where they would stay. Think of it like a really cool Airbnb that was retro to their timeline when they were in their prime, their late teens, early 20s, and they just saturated them with nostalgia. And they let them stay there for several weeks to a month. And when they were done testing them and assessing them, they noticed a change in certain markers in their DNA that were reversing the clock. They became their cognition improved, their mobility, their fluidity, and their movement improved, blood levels, blood pressure, all that reduced. It was pretty miraculous what they saw. Your state of mind is everything. And this is actually a whole separate topic in and of itself called epigenetics. How the environment, both your emotional environment and your mind and your spiritual environment, as well as the physical environment around you, affects your genetic output. You can, through positive emotions, upregulate your genetic output for health and longevity. But toxic emotions and chronic stress, they're stored inside our body, causing mental and physical pain that blocks our flow and then downregulates our genetic output for disease and eventually death.
Amazing. Let's switch gears for a second here. I've heard you say the biggest lie your industry tells itself is that diagnosis equals understanding. Can you explain what you mean when you say that?
I think we have a tendency to overdiagnose. And I don't think it comes from a place of negativity or a desire to do harm. I think it's kind of conditioned. And I think that people who are neurodivergent, who may be considered on the spectrum, I think we tend to overdiagnose them, over medicate them right away instead of nurturing that neurodivergence, because I think that neurodivergence can show up in a lot of ways as creativity. It's a different frequency that somebody's on. You have to think that mental health and your emotional state and your mental state and your spiritual state is all a frequency and vibration, because everything is a frequency and vibration. And I have a tendency to believe that the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, the DSM-5, tends to create a set of frequencies that are normal. And then everything outside of that is abnormal and then diagnostic. So if you think of it like a radio station, now people who might be more neurodivergent are on a different, maybe a higher frequency, and can interpret and see things and create things that are different and unique that our society needs. But instead, we want them to come back into the norm to stay within that realm because it's a safe space that we know. But what if we, instead of medicating and instead of diagnosing and saying it's wrong inherently, what if we did our best to help those people self actualize? Because those people can be the greatest creators that take our world forward. But if we're so quick to diagnose and put everybody in a box that we should be fitting in diagnostically, I think we can do a lot of damage. We can't grow. We're all meant to come to this earth within a different frequency and a different vibration so that we can excel collectively.
I am absolutely undeniably a neurodivergent person. Instead of when I was young, girls weren't being diagnosed with ADHD and autism, and psychiatrists were at the point where they who would say, "Oh, she's depressed. Let's put her on whatever came before Prozac, and then Prozac." And my entire childhood, I was treated for depression. When I can look back and say, no, I was neurodivergent, and my environment was absolutely inappropriate for me.
Mm.
So I'm thinking through what you're saying. And is it putting someone in a diagnostic box? We're stuck in that step, but the next step is changing environments for people rather than medicating them so they can function in a harmful environment.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of school systems that are evolving now, like Montessori schools. I think it's great.
Mhm.
Kids can go at their own pace, look at and research and do the things that they're interested in doing. They do have a baseline of what's expected for them so that they meet each academic grade level. But I think that giving children freedom and space is going to be key, because if a child is constantly suppressed and told not to be who they are authentically, how are they to evolve as an adult to become that authentically if you've been programmed like that since childhood? Between the ages of 0 and 7 years of age, from birth to 7, that is considered a neurodevelopmental critical period. And this is where you're downloading from your parents and your caregivers, or whoever is your primary person, or your teachers too, how you view yourself, how you view others, and how you view the world at large. Now, there's two types of subconscious programming. And remember, the subconscious mind dictates 95% of your behaviors. There's two
Wow.
types of subconscious programming. The first is a limited subconscious programming, and that focuses around beliefs like, I am not worthy, I am not enough. It's a parent who projects their own limitations onto the child, or their mental limitations may be they feel insecure about themselves. So everything they do is projected onto that child, saying, you're not enough, you're too much, you need to do this, that, or the other, pipe down. They shrink the child. So the
Mhm.
child shrinks their mind about what they are. And if you don't believe you're worthy, how are you to receive the dreams that you want in your life, right? If you don't believe you're worthy, how are you to manifest anything in the 3D reality, right? Then we have the other programming, which is a limitless subconscious programming, I call it. And I feel blessed to have had that with my mother. And she just said, you can do whatever you want to do, believe in yourself. She picked me up, made me more resilient, told me not to give up, be persistent if that's what's in my heart. And she was there emotionally supportive when I was rejected. And I've been rejected a myriad of times from childhood to this present day because that's just how life is. But that created in my subconscious mind a limitless mindset that rejection happens. It's not a reflection of who I am. I am not what happened to me. I'm who I choose to be in every moment. And that has made all the difference. How your subconscious mind is programmed is so key because people, if you're programmed in a limited way, you keep repeating the same patterns over and over and over again. You got to break the cycle before the cycle breaks you. How do you do that? Well, if you got to become aware of the cycle first, you got to become aware of the toxic patterns first. And once you become aware of them, then you say, what things do I need to change? And it's always one of these three things: your thoughts, your emotions, and your behaviors, right? So you got to throw a monkey wrench and do something different to create a new and adaptive neural network, right? That leads you on a new path to success and enlightenment.
So that goes back to what you were saying before, try a new lipstick or wear a different thing or those kinds of things to start. So if we were more parented in the limited subconscious beliefs when we were children, what are some things we can do to start to notice that? And then the real practical things that you can do to try and reparent yourself into that limitless subconscious belief system.
Well, let's start with the beliefs, right? When things aren't going your way and you're feeling depressed, ask yourself, what is the root of this? What am I believing right now? And what am I feeling right now? Many people don't understand that your thoughts are, or your beliefs, they're electrical frequencies that you broadcast to the universe, while your emotions, which emanate from your heart space, are magnetic and they draw in that reality of what you're broadcasting. So, really, the world is a mirror of what you're experiencing. It's really becoming aware of all of that, number one. Changing your belief system. We can change our emotions before changing our beliefs. Many people don't believe that. You can conjure up nostalgia if you wanted to. You can conjure up a memory or a recollection of winning or feeling seen and holding that emotion. That's the real flex, is how long can you hold that emotion that's a positive emotion. Gratitude is a magnetic emotion. But the most magnetic thing that you can be in this world, and when I say magnetic, it draws in the reality that you want to experience, is your most authentic self. You got to start asking yourself, does this serve me? Does this push my energy forward? If something takes away energy from you and depletes you like an energy vampire, that's no bueno. You need to figure out boundaries with whatever that is or just detach from it. But if it gives you energy, you have to go to what gives you energy. And so recognizing your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors, because those are the only three things you truly have control of in your life.
Yeah. I love when you say we are not as free as we've been taught to believe. Can you talk a little bit more about this?
Yeah, it definitely goes back to what we previously discussed. As children, we're groomed right away to everything's programming, right? What we watch on television is programming. It's how they want us to be wired. How we interact in classroom environments, the very structured, standardized tests. So much of the things we learn aren't necessarily something that we take on into the real world. And so that's all begins the programming. We also become programmed by our parents, and many of them are not always living the generational miracle. They are living the generational curse that they program us with, right? And there's a lot of subconscious programming. And then we're told that we should go to college or we should get a job working in the workforce, right? We have a couple of options, really. And then within that job space, we have selections that we can do. But essentially, we come into this planet in debt. When we're born, at least nowadays, like a medical bill for a woman to have a baby is $40,000. You're making your parents in debt just by coming into existence, right? And then they groom you to get out of the house. They kick you out of the house at 18. And then the only way to get credit is to have debt, right? And so you're living in a debt cycle. You were born on this planet and personally believe if you're born on this planet, you should just have free reign. The resources all are ours. You know what I'm saying? This is very idealistic. This is very new earth. Let's go back to it. Then we have to get a career, right? Then costs go up and we have to have debt for a house, debt for a car, debt for this in order for us to exist. So we're always existing in a state of chronic debt. That's the majority of society. What does that do to your psyche when you're never enough and you're always in debt? When you're always having to pay this off or pay that off? The system. And then they got you in a rat race. And when I say they, that's up to interpretation to you. That's how you project onto it. But we're in a rat race from 9 to 5 every day. And it's depleting all our energy. We get 2 days off to be creative when really we need those 2 days to restore ourselves from that 9 to 5 in order to make that money. So it's kind of an illusion of freedom because you get to choose what you buy, maybe, but you're in debt to society at large and you have to pick jobs from certain professions, right? This will make money, this won't make money. And you're not necessarily picking jobs that are great because you want to have a quality of life where you can spend money. So you might say, I'm going to become a lawyer or I'm going to become a medical doctor. But those might not be things that you really want to do, but you're doing it because it provides money for your family and money is important. And so, yes, you could say it's a slave to money and finance, and proving our existence is worthy. And the only way we prove that we are worthy is through monetization. And it's unfortunate. It's a sad cycle. And I think people should have the ability to be free. And we have to figure out a whole new system, but that will come with time. I hope and pray.
I hope too. Yeah.
Me too. And
Um,
so within that system, how can people reclaim freedom?
in society as it is.
Freedom for, so
You know,
within that system, how can people reclaim spaces and pieces of freedom?
you're absolutely right. And I had to do that myself. I was working for the government for many years in the military. So that's like as systematic, as regimented, as hamster wheelie as it gets, right? So the things that I did were I danced ballet, I did all the extracurriculars I did as a kid. I played my viola, I wrote books, I danced, I sang, I did DIY projects on my weekends. It was really having to cram it all on my time off, even if it meant waking up at 4:30, but that also depletes you. So you have
Mhm.
to find a way. And I'm not saying everybody despises their job. That would be a hasty generalization because some people really love what they're going to work to do. And that's so amazing because that is alignment. That is congruence. And if you found that and you like, let's say you're a teacher and you love it, you just love it. That is a win because you're winning in the system and you're also winning creatively and with your passion and your purpose. But not everyone's gift fits the system, if that makes any sense. You have to work your gifts and then you got to strategize how much of this in alignment. Let's say you're working at a job and it's not really congruent with you anymore. You've outgrown it, you're not in alignment, but you're collecting a paycheck. You're going to have to come to a place where you rationalize, what am I doing here? Because there's incongruence. My spirit and my mind are in another direction, but my body's here at this stagnant place at work. What am I going to do because I'm out of alignment? And then you've got to be creative and problem solve. You've got to lean into your higher knowing. You need to lean into God, to source, to creator within, and God, of course, above. And then you'll figure it out. But we always come to this place of clashing and cognitive dissonance where working at this place is just no longer in alignment with our creative mindset and where we want to go in life. And that's a real harsh reality and something I had to work through personally.
So I feel like we've been talking around the subject of self actualization without actually saying the words out loud. Can you talk to us about what self actualization is and what it means to you?
Yeah, to me, it's evolution. It's just the process of evolving as who you are truly meant to be, the most free version of you. It's becoming your highest self. I believe that when we drop down to earth, we all have a divine design for our divine destiny, something that our spirit yearns to accomplish in this lifetime. And it's really quieting the other voices outside of that and trying to tune into that inner voice, whether we do it through prayer or meditation, self reflection, it's self introspection, it's growing, it's evolving, it's seeing how we harmonize with other people. It's becoming that infinite creator that we were designed to be. It's discovering what your gift is and giving it away and experiencing that reciprocity with other people because we're not meant to do that alone. I believe we're spiritual beings having a human experience. The goal is to live our spirit out to the best ability in this physical body.
I love that. So,
First of all, I admire the work you're doing so much because one thing I've noticed is that we all have this desire for freedom and to create and to be expansive. And there's also something in human nature that instead of focusing on doing that ourselves, it's sometimes easier to try to put other people back in their place. And that's something going between, I live in Mexico, and going between Mexico and the United States, specifically where I am originally from in the Midwest. Kind of a lot of subtle people putting other people back in their place where they're supposed to be. And that's how things well and efficiently.
Yeah, self actualization truly is a trigger, period. If you choose to self actualize and become different, and what does different mean? Become you, because we're not meant to be the same. Diversity is not uniformity, right?
Mhm.
Hello.
yeah.
I think people want us to be uniform. That's how the mind is. It's survival instinct, right? Like, don't want to stand out at the expense of being left out. And that's what children do too, like
Mm.
survival mode, like peer pressure. We want to group together and we want to have the same group think and mentality and everything like that. But we say we want to be ourselves all at the same time. But the reality is, the behaviors and the actions are very incongruent with that in this country and probably across the world. I don't know if we're all truly self actualized at this point. We're ready for that energy. But now I believe we're in the age of ascension and we're ready for that energy. But know that when you choose to self actualize, you're going to trigger people so hard. And they're going to be like, what is she doing? What is he doing? Right? Because it becomes that you become, when you become yourself, you become a mirror, like transparent mirror. So people are going to project onto you what they need to see in order to feel safe. People are either going to be like, oh my God, you're my hero. You're so free. And I want to be that free. And then other people are, I don't have the courage to be that free. So what they're going to warp it as in their mind is, I can't stand her. Who does she think she is doing that? You know, so it becomes a
Mhm.
survival thing. Like, if not ready to self actualize themselves and they want to be free, but they don't have the courage to be free because it requires reanalyzing your whole life and shifting things around, they're not going to like you. And you're going to become very polarized. It's going to be like oil and water. People are either going to just love you and you're going to find your tribe. And that's a beautiful thing because then you become like a
Mhm.
beacon, like a light out there for others who understand your frequency and vibration, who also want to be authentic. They're going to gravitate to you, those other unicorns. But those who don't, they're going to shame you and they're going to try and keep you small because it makes them feel comfortable. They like the old version of you over the growing version of you.
Yeah.
You say what you said again. I really want to remember it about being people don't want to stand out at the cost of exclusion.
Survival.
It was a golden nugget, and I want to store that within us.
Yeah. So it teaches us to live in fear, which is like the root chakra. We don't feel safe and we yearn for safety. And what do we do to feel safe? We congregate with others. And that results in unifying, which is great, at the expense of becoming who we are. But do I believe that we can become who we truly want to be and who we truly authentically are and still be unified? Absolutely. We don't have to be the same person. Like I said, it isn't uniformity. And we have to overcome this basic need to fit in because it has to do with survival, right? Because the more we're connected with a group, the more we're protected. But we have to neuro hack that survival mode in order to feel safe to be seen. You got to feel safe to be seen because if you don't feel safe, self actualization will be impeded.
So, do you have tips for those of us who may not feel quite as actualized as we would like to be? Going in that direction feels really vulnerable and scary.
Absolutely. Take my freedom rhythm class. We dance with silks. It's colorful, it's vibrant, it's
It's
athletic,
so
it's
fun.
great. And it's appropriate for all different ages. But the bottom line, I'm putting a plug in. But what I'm trying to get at, and the reason why I created Freedom Rhythm as a former professional ballet dancer and a psychologist, and understanding what we need to do in order to self actualize is dance and move. Your body keeps a score of all these toxic subconscious programs. Your body keeps a score of all this toxic energy, all the chronic stress, all the negative emotions, all the cortisol. Your body holds on to it. Okay. The only way, in my opinion, in one of the many ways, is to break free. And it doesn't have to be professional dancing. It doesn't have to be a ballet class. It doesn't have to be anything structured. It's just your own creative movement. Put on your favorite jams that just set you off and dance it out. That's when your inner child fully comes out to play, right? That's when you feel the most free. Just move it out. Don't judge yourself. You've got to stop judging yourself. Everyone's going to judge you. So just stop judging you. That's the only thing you can do. Everyone's going to judge. People judge, judge. And then I go, whoa, judging. About the situation triggered me to judge? Let's step back. What does that mean about me? Because everything's a projection of myself. And that sounds narcissistic, but it is the truth. Everything we see is a projection of the lens within ourselves. So dance, move, have fun, embrace the inner child, go do a paint party, go be playful, do what we did together, Ashley and I. Like, we got dressed up in cosplay, we ran around like little girls frolicking just for fun. We danced to Girls Just Want to Have Fun. We put on wigs and makeup. And then we went out and we pretended like we were different people in public and just had a great time. You do something different, color outside the lines. You got to throw a monkey wrench in the cycle. Novelty really helps. If you do something that's novel that you've never done before, that pulls you out of that chronic stress programming. And then when you do those things, you meet this new version of you, a new facet of you. And every time you discover new facets of you, you become more alive and you become more authentic.
Do you have any final words of wisdom for our audience?
Oh, I was just going to add one
Oh,
more thing.
go ahead. Add one more thing.
I think you said something really important in there, judging. I also, now well into my 40s, have found that if I find myself judging, it is a sign for me to stop and figure out what work I have to do on myself.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Judging's one thing, but it's whenever you feel emotionally triggered by anything. If anything makes you angry, if anything frustrates you, if anything confuses you, um, be like, why is this confusing? Why is this frustrating? Is this out of alignment? Why am I perceiving it in this light? Right. But back in the day, I was very judgmental, and I'm like saying this, of women who would just like their bodies and just very provocative. And I don't know, I felt very judgmental about that. And as I've evolved, I start to look at it now and I'm like, why am I so like, why does it repel me so much? Well, maybe it's because I don't feel that same sensuality within me. Maybe I'm not embracing my divine feminine energy. And maybe I won't like my boobies ball out and hang out on camera or anything like that. But it doesn't mean I can't still be sensual and sexy and embrace my divine feminine. And that was something that was really hard. But the first thing I always did when I thought people were too provocative, I would shut it off. I'd turn down. I'd be like, who do they think they are? That's the inner dialogue in my voice. And also being with a man who embraces my divine feminine is really awesome and who encourages me not to be raunchy, but to be my divine feminine, be sexy, be beautiful, be sensual, because that's a part of who you are. You are a woman, and that is not the only part of womanhood, but that's one of the most beautiful parts of womanhood. And so, allow myself to explore that in a safe space. And then when I see it now and I see people dancing, maybe some pop stars or whatever, it doesn't trigger me like it used to trigger me. I'm like, oh, they're flowing in their energy. That's a flow state for them. And if that feels good for them, then I can embrace it too. And so that's really kind of me in different ways. That's just one example of me being stuck and freeing myself.
I
I
love
think that's
that.
an amazing example.
Yeah.
Throwing that conditioning off.
Have any last words of wisdom you want to share with our audience?
Sure. The audience, you born to create. You have a divine design for your divine destiny, and it's not too late to explore it. It's never too late. In fact, I wrote a song that I'll be publishing soon called It's Right on Time. You will never miss what is meant for you. And you have to have faith and you have to trust. that you will be divinely guided and divinely protected when you do explore this divine design for your divine destiny, because this gift is the gift that is meant to light up the world. Now there's so much chaos in the world, but that's because I firmly believe in my heart and my mind and my spirit that we're birthing a new world. We have to have breakdown before we have breakthrough. And if you're on planet Earth during this very chaotic time, it means that you're here for a mission to elevate the frequency and the consciousness of this earth. And the only way to do that is to be your most authentic self, which is the most magnetic thing. And I believe that once you start embracing that, everything's going to fall into alignment. You don't need to know how, you just need to know the now.
Love it.
Catchy.
Tiffany, thank you so much for being
Mhm.
here and sitting with us in your powerful vulnerability today.
Thank you. It was vulnerable. It was. Yeah. I
Sure.
appreciate
Yeah.
you creating a safe space for me.
We
I
appreciated
love that
having you.
example.
Your energy is just beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sitting in powerful vulnerability with us today. I'm Dr. Ashley.
And I'm Catherine.
Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to the podcast as your preferred app allows.
See you on the next episode.